All right, look, we're gonna go over the list. Okay, really quick. Okay, so LCK top laners: Keen, Zeus, Doran, Rascal, Morgan. I think Morgan. So Morgan's one of the most weird things where I think a lot of people. So people might remember I did VOD reviews on Morgan a long time ago. And I thought he was going to be really, really, really good because he was one of the players from solo queue that a lot of people were talking about. And then obviously he had his time on Hanwha Life after like coming off of LPL, and a lot of people thought very like negative views of him. But I think he's been playing a lot better, obviously, this split, but top lane is probably in its weakest that it's ever been in LCK in recent years because there's so many players gone. Summit went to NA, Khan is not here anymore, Nuguri is no longer playing. You know, top lane is just in like a really, really weak spot. Keen is still the god. I mean, he's just like the god of top lane in LCK that is totally underappreciated. It's like Rookie is in general whenever like the best mid laners in the world conversation comes up until like this last year. Keen's just always insane. And sometimes Keen is one of the players that actually does look like he's 1v9ing even when he's been on like bottom standing teams. So that's good. Zeus is absolutely insane. Zeus is absolutely insane, and it's really nice to see him having so much success and that he's playing on T1 this year. And then Doran is held in pretty high regard pretty much all across the, places and whatever. But then, yeah, top lane's actually just kind of weak. You move over to jungle, and then you have Canyon, and then you have Owner, and the asterisks, obviously I have asterisks on some of the players elsewhere. I think Owner is very insane, and I think Owner is probably someone that I would value having in a team over Canyon, but I acknowledge that independent to like other variables, Canyon's probably better, and so that's fine. Jungle, like top lane, is also in a really weak state. Peanuts third, Umti, and then Dread. There's probably you could probably rotate Dread or something like that, but honestly, junglers are in a rough spot, right? Clit is gone. Cuz is not having the best of times, and the league is just league's a little weird spot right now with jungle. Mid lane's really interesting because Faker somehow unholy 10-year tenure, and Faker has, I feel like, improved somehow in the last 6 months. I think it's the weirdest thing. I do not think that Showmaker has gotten worse or something like that in the last 6 months or something like that. I think Faker has actually improved. So it is a testament to just how unholy of a player I think Faker is. And I mean, you could probably have an asterisk on Faker as well, like the Chovy argument. I think that could be had for sure. T1, I do think, is probably the most stacked lineup in League of Legends history. I actually don't think there's been a more stacked lineup. Even if some of their gameplay and results, now when I say results, I understand that they're 18-0. What I mean by results is the way that they win some of those games despite being 18-0. That's what I mean. T1's lineup is absolutely turbo broken, and totally understand that. Now, I will say that mid lane is the Elite Four. And what I mean by that is that the drop-off from BDD to Fate and then from Fate to 6th through 10th is massive. Fate, I think, has improved a lot. BDD is the gatekeeper to the top three. I don't know. This is honestly, this is the Chimera or something like this. I don't even know what you would, or the Hydra, whatever you want to call it. This is a really scary thing in top lane. I think Faker has improved. I think it's very, very noticeable if you watch all of his games this split, and as well even if you watch Showmaker, especially because Showmaker lost some value to his surrounding pieces, and I think that also shows as well. LCK, Gumayushi, Gumagod, and then Ruler and Deft. Deft has actually really surprised me. I was not as high on Deft, or I wouldn't have been as high on Deft if I was doing the same tier list at the end of summer last year. I would have had Teddy actually be up higher, but Deft's actually really, really, really surprising. I think Deft definitely has his moments, but I do not think that he is nearly as consistent or just good as Ruler or Gumagod. Teddy is... Honestly, he was having a really rough start, but then everything started turning around, and I think that Teddy is just still more valuable than pretty much every other ADC below. And then I think Duck Dom is okay. I think there's some other ADCs in LCK which are fine too. But I think that from just watching mechanics inside of teamfight, laning prowess, and other types of stuff, as well as understanding what alternatives existed inside of fights, I think it's pretty fine to have this be this way. And then obviously supports. So the support list, honestly, I couldn't give I could not give two craps about who is fifth. It just goes Keria, and then the drop off from Keria to Lehens is just unholy in itself. I don't even know. This is like SS. This is like Super Saiyan 3 Goku, okay? When everyone else could like barely push 2 without like losing their breath. So Keria, definitely Boo Saga over here. Totally cracked out of his mind. Super God support, best support in the world. And then you have Lehens and Beryl. And then I think after them, the best support that is like very malleable, very good, just really good foundation. Obviously has good mechanics. Obviously has good champion pool. Can play lots of different ranges of life. And then after that, don't care. Don't actually care who comes after that. I think that it is so awkward to even bother wanting to differentiate between them that it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's LCK. Move on to LCS. So I can't find the list of LCS that I made before. I can't find the list of LCS that I made before LCS actually started. I am really curious how similar it looks to what it is right now. Because I did a pre-LCS prediction list, but I don't know where that thing actually is. Summit, I think, is the best top laner. I think that Whippo could have an asterisk, and what I mean by Whippo could have an asterisk is I think that Whippo is probably one of the most knowledgeable League of Legends players in the entire world. I think that this is like also shown by like, you know, Whippo all around the world role swap type stuff, as well as just the amount of champions that this guy plays. Anyone who's heard him talk about the game, Whippo is extremely knowledgeable. Summit does play a handful of champions. He plays them exceptionally well, and his mechanics are probably maybe the best in the LCS overall. He might actually have the best mechanics in the LCS overall. I think it's either him or Berserker for the overall best mechanics in LCS. Probably might actually be Berserker, but obviously that's Summit's forte. After that, Sunday Impact. I think that these two are kind of interchangeable. I think that you think about them in basically the same tier of player. Obviously, there's a little bit of difference and some nuance between them. I think that you would view Someday more on like the surety to do something side of things, whereas Impact is like the reliable clutch. You can like count on type of person. And then after this, top lane also falls off a cliff, and top lane is also not really super discernible, but I do think that from watching a lot of the games that Revenge does seem to have the better mechanics out of the remaining top laners that are in LCS. And then LCS Jungle, Blabber, Inspired, Centaur, Closer, Pride Stalker. So I know this is a list that has swapped. Inspired is looking worse than he was looking last year. Don't know what totally attributes to it. I think Blabber has obviously been looking really, really mechanically clean, and everything else that's been going on. So Pride Stalker has an asterisk. Centaur and Closer are right here, although I do think that the sum of their pieces surrounding them is why I have them above Pride Stalker. So one of the things I want to say about Pride Stalker is Pride Stalker has really rough situation when you consider that he does not have very strong teammates supporting him, but I feel like Pride Stalker is a very standout player in his role. And I think it's actually pretty impressive. So I'm curious what would actually happen if Pride Stalker had better surrounding pieces, given the current environment and nature of LCS. So I don't really know. But then after like Pride Stalker, I think a lot of junglers, it's kind of, I don't really know what to think about it. Spica is having a really, really, really rough time. Spica's been having a really, really, really bad split. Now, I think with the current makeup of things, it would be unfair of me to put Spica on this list. It really would. I think highly of Spica, but I think it would be very unfair to put him on this current list, especially with how he's like juggling and handling the turbulence of this split. A lot of people are like saying River, and it's like no, no, no. I don't like the coin flips. Okay, coin flips are not a very cool thing. Not a very cool thing. I don't think that's like I think that's more like abuse than it is like proper play, especially when you consider a lot of stuff that's going on. I think that as the split has like drawn on and from lock-in to like now and everything else is going on, River just continues to look more and more like middle. It does. There's nothing going on there. So here's the thing: Bjergsen and the double asterisks on Jojo Pyun and Fudge. So I think that in a weird turn of events, I think that Fudge is a much better player. And what I mean by that is that I think that Fudge's mechanics, I think that Fudge's overall ability to, assess things and, do everything in that regard is really, really, really high. But I think that there's value in having Bjergsen in mid lane. One of the things that I've likened this to is I likened it to like last year and stuff when I would talk about Showmaker versus Faker, when I had Showmaker higher than Faker, in that, there's value to having Faker in your team, even if Showmaker and Chovy were like literally the top two, like Vegeta and Goku, whatever. There was like almost no touching them. I think that there's value to having him. I think that the way that it is right now, though, a lot of mid laners in LCS are either slumping, mediocre, or they're literally just playing to get through the game. That's what it looks like. So in some regards, that's what leads me to having Tukoi and Jojopyeon also very high on the list. Although I actually do think kind of high of Jojopyeon from at least watching like from a mechanical perspective. I think the way that he tries to do certain things is good. I think he could be a much better player, but he opts into playing a certain way. And I think just on stream a moment ago, I likened it to like Phil Hellmuth talking about Tom Dwan very early on when Tom Dwan first started playing poker. I think it's a very apt comparison. And it doesn't mean that you obviously can't play aggressive or that you can't do aggressive things. It just means that when you are doing those things, there has to be a sequence that actually you do have total autonomy over when doing it. But sometimes when you watch a lot of Jojopyeon trades, you just realize the opponents blunder or they miss pushback and yada yada yada. So I think Fudge is interchangeable. I still think that Fudge is par for the course for where I predicted him to end up eventually throughout this year. I think that he will just end up being the best, but I think Fudge is a phenomenal player, obviously. I've always had this regard. A lot of this, obviously, we don't have ProView anymore, so you guys can't see ProView and all the other good stuff. Some people will meme that his CSing can be bad, and I agree with that too. CSing can sometimes be an issue, but, as things continue to draw on, I think Fudge will end up overtaking, but I think as it stands right now, Bjergsen is just, I think he's just more valuable. Tukoi, I think, is actually surprising. Abadage is slumping, so there's that. AD Carry, Berserker, I think him and Summit, again, two best mechanics in the entire league. And I think that whenever people hear the word mechanics, they don't totally know exactly what that word even means. So basically, I think mechanics, so let me think of this. Mechanics are to what threshold can you go up to when presented with a certain situation, mechanically. So basically imagine, you have a graphics card that is like turbo steroided, just absolutely turbo steroided, and you can go really, really high. Obviously, if you don't have any graphics that push you to those heights, then it's never going to be shown or utilized or something like that, but you still have the capability to go really, really, really high. So I think that having that capability is obviously there. I think Berserker has shown in a lot of spots his mechanics, and I think Berserker's also shown his flexibility with champion pool and other stuff that he's willing to do, and his open-mindedness to like playing very different types of champions, even if, yes, his most, successful ones and ones that he's very known for are like his Aphelios and his Jinx and whatever. Hansama, I think, is up there again for mechanics and just overall like sturdiness in the AD carry position. And then we have Danny and Luger. Luger's really, really good in laning phase. I've talked about how early on in LCS, Berserker actually made a comment that he thought Luger was actually very, very good. And he likened Luger to, I think, Hansama when laning against him, because he said that he had played against him actually quite a few times, I think, in solo queue and other stuff. So he held that opinion of him. So Luger, I think, has been doing very good. Honestly, 80 carries after this. Again, some people might meme like FBI and stuff, but honestly, you can just meme their remaining list because it's the same exact thing. It's very akin to top lane in the way that things are right now. So that's just how this is. So, LCS, support, Core JJ. I think this one doesn't really need an explanation. So what I will do is I'll move on to Ole. I think Ole, just like Pride Stalker, the surrounding parts, it's really hard for Ole to do things. But I think that from a mechanical perspective, Ole is just better than pretty much most people. Ole is just actually better than most people in LCS from a mechanical standpoint. Ole also has champion diversity. I think Ole is one of the main factors that is going into his team right now. I think Vulcan is having a really rough split. And the same thing that I would say for Spica, I would say for Vulcan in this regard. Winsome also does have really, really good mechanics. I think that Winsome I would probably put higher than Vulcan on like mechanical category. But I think Winsome's having Winsome's having some like roughness, but I don't think very highly of supports. This is no secret. It's very, very hard for me to think highly of supports. I talked about the same thing with LCK supports, etc. I think everyone after Winsome and Ayla, it's like I don't even care almost at that point. I literally almost don't even care. Once you go below Winsome and Ayla, it's like almost everyone's playing the same thing. Almost everyone's doing the same thing. Mechanically, there's very little discernment between them. Game knowledge-wise, I mean, you can't really know without looking at like any content that the players have really like produced or something like that. And then like playmaking and all this other, it's just very hard to find. So it's pretty much that. So that is current thoughts on, you know, what is going on with supports. So honestly, freest roles to break into, I think like 5th and well, honestly, I don't think maybe jungle 5th is like impossible to break into. Abadage is slumping. I think like this is very touchable if like you're trying to improve and actually get better. I think this is very touchable. I think this is very touchable, and I think honestly in the current scheme of things in theory, I think this is very touchable. But I don't necessarily think that it's realistic. I think this is probably very touchable. I think 5th, but you know, that's just pretty much it. I have not watched, so a lot of people right now are asking me to do LEC, and obviously as I scroll here, we can't really do, we can't do LEC. I have not watched enough LEC. I have live viewed 2 weeks of LEC. I will be live viewing all of LEC playoffs and whatnot, but unfortunately, I cannot do LEC as it would not be a fair assessment based on anything that I've watched. So that is pretty much it.